I just restarted the engine. When I ran it a while back, first time I started it in it's about 6 years, I had an exhaust leak, and the previous owner told me there was an exhaust leak inside the boat. He said there was a flange back here underneath the battery compartment. He said this flange, he knew it was leaking around the flange somewhere. It's two flanges with a short pipe in between, and the short pipe's about 1 foot long, and he wasn't sure exactly where it was leaking, but he knew it was leaking in that area. Well, I just fired up the engine and ran it, took the little compartment, opened it up down here so I can get to the flange all the way around it, and good news, because he suggested I may have to take it out and have it rewelded. I found the leak, and it was where I was hoping it'd be. It was actually one of the flanges was leaking, so it's leaking on the side towards the bottom. I could feel the exhaust coming out with my hand. I felt around everywhere along the exhaust looking for leaks, and that's how I like to do it. I can, because you can't always see a leak visually, but I just put my hand down there and I can feel the hot air blowing out, the hot exhaust. And so it's the flange itself. So there's a couple possibilities. I may just be able to tighten the bolts down, and that may eliminate the leak. Or, and I'll probably try that first and see. Or I'll just go ahead and replace the gaskets. And that's probably what I should do anyway, because a lot of times when you have an exhaust leak, the gasket kind of gets blown out. So, and if that's the case, I'll replace both of the gaskets. But right now I just need to get this boat ready to move. I don't have far to move. When I do move, hopefully, if I find the place where I'm hoping to find it, it won't be a real long trip. Plus I'll be sailing part of the way. I don't want to motor the whole way because this is a sailboat and I haven't taken it out yet. So I'm going to want to get her out and see how she sails. And so any rate, I did see some water down here. Now I got a fresh water hose hooked up to the exhaust system, and I was running just fresh water through the engine, and I see little droplets of water, and so I'm going to restart the engine here in a second, and again recheck for the leaks and exhaust leaks, and see if I can figure out where this water is. It's not a lot, it's just a little bit. I also found some water over, there's a slight little bit of water in the bilge, but that was probably from when I washed the boat last weekend. I have some hatches in the cockpit that leak a little bit, and so there's a little tiny bit of water in the bilge, not very much, but I found some water over here, and it's underneath my hot water heater, and it's kind of a little area of fiberglass that's part of the, I think it's part of the motor mount, and there's water back along, trapped back in there. My pressurized water system, a DC pressurized water system, and the pump's right down here, and every once in a while it kicks on, and just for a second, and then it shuts off, and then sometimes it'll go a whole day without kicking on. Sometimes it'll kick on every 20 minutes. And so I've been assuming that there could be there must be a leak somewhere. Well, there's a whole bunch of connectors down here going to my hot water heater, and so I'm hoping it's one of those. So that should be an easy fix, and hopefully that'll take care of my pressurized water system. And so you pump air into the top of the little pump here. It's got a diaphragm in it. It may be that I need to pump more air into it, but I don't know if that would cause it to kick on and off. It would seem to me the only thing that would cause that would be a leak somewhere. So any rate, and right here, if you're wondering what this red light is, I can change the color here, I think, on my little remote control. Yep. This is my lithium battery bank I built. So it's a 12-volt system. It's lithium iron phosphate, so it's really safe. These things don't explode and catch on fire like lithium cobalt, and you know, they use in electric cars, and also the ion type other batteries that can catch on fire. So these things are really safe. They the worst thing that happens to them is they will smoke if one of the sails something goes bad with them. And of course, you wouldn't want that smoke inside your boat because it probably causes a lot of smoke damage. But so you got to be real careful with them. I got a plexiglass cover on it. I don't have it slid into place right now. It's just sitting on top, but I got slots where it slides in. And but at any rate, this battery bank, what I did was I put I wired them together to create a 12-volt battery, because that's what this boat was originally set up for, and I didn't want to have to change everything. And plus, it's there's a lot of 12-volt accessories available for boats and RVs and stuff, and so if you switch to 24 or 48, you're going to have problems with that. And so I just decided to stay at 12 volts. I'm going to put up solar panels and wind generators. I have 2 of them on the install. But at any rate, so how I did this was each one of these cells is, close this, 3.2 nominal voltage. And so I wired them up 5 cells in parallel. And so that makes like a big cell. It makes like a big super cell. And so it's still 3.2 volts. And then, so I have 4 sets of those. So that's one supercell, here's another supercell, here's another supercell, and here's the last supercell. So there's 4 of them. Then I connected them, and these yellow bus bars are, the black ones are the parallel connections, and the yellow ones are the series connections. So now each one of these supercells are connected to the other ones in series, and that bumps the voltage up to 12 volts. And so I've had this installed now for way over a year. I've only been charging it with shore power. I have a 55 amp charger here for it using shore power. And I don't use the power off this a lot because I also have a dock box with AC power coming into the boat. But I do run some of my lights in here. It runs my water, pressurized water system, and bilge pumps and stuff like that. Of course, it runs the running lights and all the DC. It's connected to the DC panel, so it runs anything that's DC on this boat. And so it's been great. There were used cells when I bought them. I was real careful when I bought them. It's real easy to get ripped off. I really lucked out. I got them. I got 5 cells from this one person on eBay, and he had a good reputation. And the cells were good, and then I bought the rest of them from a place up in Washington State, which I think all these cells were at one time like maybe in a Muni bus, you know, a hybrid bus or something like that. And but the ones from Washington, they said were all from the same group. They tested them. I retested them, capacity tested them, and they all checked out the spec. I even checked the resistance on all of the cells, and they matched pretty close. So overall, it's been a really good battery bank, and hopefully it'll last a long time. I haven't done a complete, as it's connected, capacity test on them, but theoretically it should be around 11,000 watt hours. So if it's over 10,000 watt hours, I'll be happy. And one of these days I'll do a test. I got a 5,000 watt inverter in here that I haven't hooked up yet, and it's a pure sine wave inverter, and it's going to be maybe installed in here. I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to have to create really good ventilation because these things get hot. But they need to be as close to the battery bank as possible. So this is one option. The other option is I have a place in here and a cabinet in here behind the battery bank where I may install it as well. But I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to put it. I like it in here because it's a good place for it. It's real close, short wires. But I just don't want it to overheat in here. So I'm going to have to create some good ventilation in here. I got a couple ideas on that. So right now I'm going to start the engine up and run it a little bit more, check for leaks, see where this water is coming from, and go from there. So we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm just flushing the engine out with fresh water right now. Like I said, the previous owner has this green garden hose. He hooks to the freshwater faucet out here on the dock to run fresh water through. And so I'm just going to let this flush out for a couple more minutes, and I'm going to shut her down. And I see that where the water was leaking inside my boat, getting splattered around, was coming from my dripless gland, which is a dripless stuffing box, which obviously isn't dripless because it's dripping. So I'm gonna have to look into that. Though it looks to me like the more I run it, the less it drips. So it may just need to get wore back in a little bit. But other than that, I went ahead and felt the flange again, the exhaust flange, and I found that the gasket was leaking in two places, at least two places, maybe three. And it definitely is going to have to be replaced. It feels to me like chunks of the gasket. I don't know what kind of material the gaskets are made out of, but they're like blown out. So it looks to me like I'll probably have to remove the flange and just put new gaskets in. I don't know where I'm going to get them, or if I'm going to make them myself, or what. The worst part is going to be getting the bolts loose, because exhaust pipes with rusty bolts never fun. So hopefully I can get them apart without damaging anything, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's going to have to get fixed as soon as possible. And I was going to go ahead and replace the battery cable today, because the starter battery, I have to use a lead acid battery because of the way this thing charges. I can't run it, I can't start the engine directly off my lithium bank. Eventually I'll have it set up so I can, but right now I decided I was just going to go ahead and install another lead acid battery. I was hoping to avoid that. I don't like lead acid batteries because you have to put water in them, and then they also spew sulfuric acid out of them. If they overcharge, they boil, and they're also hazardous. You know, people say, oh, lithium batteries are dangerous, but I got to tell you, so are lead acid batteries, because they put off hydrogen gas, and a tiny spark can cause a pretty big explosion. So they're not completely safe either, but I have to use it for the starter. So everything's working. The battery's charging, the alternator's charging the battery. The exhaust smoke, I was smoking a little bit, and been getting some blue smoke, but after the engine runs a while, it pretty much clears up. So I think that's just a matter of the engine needing to be run more. It was rebuilt before I bought it, and it only has about 500 hours on it, so it's not even really broke in again. But it runs great and sounds good, and the prop is spinning, and transmission's working good, and everything seems to be good. All the gauges are working, so yeah, it looks good. We'll see what happens, but I need to put in a water strainer. I do have a strainer that I bought. Anyway, I got this Seaflow strainer off of eBay, and I needed a 1-inch diameter fitting because the hose is 1-inch diameter for the cooling system. So how this works is water comes into the boat, salt water from the bottom underneath the boat through the through-hole fitting that you saw inside with the hoses connected. So I have two valves down there, one for the hose, fresh water for the dock, from the dock, to flush out the engine, the salt water out of the engine after I'm done running it, and then of course the other hose is for the salt water. And so at any rate, this is the strainer, and so one of these hoses hooks to the saltwater side where the inlet side is, the inlet side. So seawater comes in through a hose into here, and then there's a screen inside of here, and this just unscrews, and it's watertight. I'm going to install this above the water line. Might be able to get away with putting this below the water line, as long as you got a valve on your through-hole fitting to shut the water off so it doesn't flood the boat. But I'm going to put it above the water line, so I'll be able to open this up with the valves open and not have to worry about anything. And it's got the strainer inside, and the strainer comes out, and so it just catches any debris that's in the ocean that gets sucked in, so it doesn't get sucked into your engine. And so that's how that works. I was going to do that today. I don't know if I'll get to it. I wanted to get the battery cable in because I had to put a new battery cable because the lead acid battery location is a little different from what the original owner had. So the cable that he had was too short. So at any rate, so that's that. It's real simple. And I did this before with my other boat. I installed a 60 horsepower Lehman diesel engine 4-cylinder in my other sailboat that I had. And so I've been through this before, and this is not a very big deal. So now I'm going to go ahead and shut the engine down. And whenever you run your engine, you always want to load on it. So you know, run the prop. If you're in the dock, you know, you're tied to the dock, you got your dock lines tied, your boat's not going to go anywhere. Just make sure no one's swimming in the water by the prop, and there's no ropes or lines in the water or anything around the prop before you start it up. So always run, when you run your engine, always run it under load. Don't let it just idle or run without the transmission engaged. This boat here, the transmission and throttle are all one unit, and so when you throttle it up, it kicks it into gear. So you push it forward, it goes to forward, and then as you pull it back, it throttles down, and then you hear it click there, and now it's neutral. So now the prop's not spinning at all. And then as I kick it back this way, it now puts it into reverse, and it throttles it back up again. And now we're backing up, and I can see the boat moving backwards slightly. And so that's how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and shut her down now. I think it's run long enough. I just wanted to run it some, make sure everything's working good. I'm going to run it several times before I leave the dock here to move the boat. I want to make sure that the engine starts every time. There's a lot of traffic in the bay, San Francisco Bay, and big freighters, and they move really fast. They look like they're a long ways away, and you turn your back for 2 seconds and you turn around again and they're right on top of you. So yeah, I want to make sure that my engine's going to start if I need to start it, if I'm under sailed or whatever. So at any rate, we're in neutral now, and I'm going to shut her down. Yep. That's it. So my lithium bank here, I got LEDs put inside the battery box that I built for it, and there's the charger that I have for it. I think it's called a Power Max, 55 amp. And what's really nice about this charger is that I can adjust the voltage on it. So there's 2 little screw holes there, and so I can adjust the voltage and adjust it to whatever I want. Different chemistries, battery chemistries require different voltages, and plus, you know, I charge it like I think I got set it around 13.7. You can go up to like, I think the lithium batteries here, these iron phosphates, they can go up to like 14.6 or 14.5 or 14.6, but I don't like to charge them all the way up. I can, but I keep it a little bit under, just to be on the safe side. I don't have any battery protection on here at all, no BMS yet. I do have a BMS, and I also do have a low voltage DC cutoff from Victron that I need to install. So it'll be set so it won't overcharge or over discharge, because that can really damage these batteries. If you run these batteries down too far, you can just throw them in the garbage, because they are not going to be usable again. And same thing with overcharging them, you can damage them badly. So that's one of the things about about these lithium batteries. You have to be really careful, but that's true with all batteries, even lead acid batteries. I also have this neat little monitor that I installed right here, and I can turn it on. And I don't know if you can see it. Let me get some light over here. But it's a battery monitor, and it does have a low voltage alarm, which is really nice, and the alarm is really annoying and loud, and that's what you want. But at any rate, I don't know if you can see what the settings are, or what the it shows every cell. So it shows 4 cells on there, and those are the super cells, and you can see they're discharged down pretty far. I'm going to need to charge her back up here pretty soon, but yeah, it works really good, and it tells you how out of balance they are. And it's really interesting, but I bottom balance these batteries, and I put them all in parallel, every cell, totally, all of them at the same time, all connected in parallel. I ran them down to about as low, to the lowest level that is safe, around 2.5 volts. You don't want to go below that. And so I discharged them all down to 2.5 volts. Then I connected them all in parallel and let them set for literally like a week. They probably didn't have to sit that long, but that makes all of them the same level. They're all the same. And that's called bottom balancing. You can do top balancing where you charge them all the way up and do the same thing, then hook them all in parallel and let them set for a while, and that's top balancing. And some people like to middle balance. Well, this battery bank's really interesting because I don't know why, but when I bottom balanced them, and then as I charge them up, they start going out of balance. Not real bad, but they go out of balance. And but then when they start getting to the top, they fill all the way full. Then they start balancing back out again. So I'm not messing with them. So that's what you want. You don't want them out of you don't want them out of balance, or you don't want one cell to be a lot lower than the others. If you run the battery down to the low point, one of the cells, if it's too low, might go too low until the point where it gets damaged. And same thing when you're charging. You don't want one cell to go too high and get damaged during charging. So this has been working out really good. I mean, it as the lower it gets, the more balanced it gets, which is what bottom balancing does. But I notice that when I charge it, it goes out of balance when it gets about in the middle of the charge, when they're halfway full, and then when they're topped off, it goes right back into balance again. So yeah, it's I don't know why. It seems like it just keep going more and more out of balance as I charge, but it doesn't. So just in the middle, it goes out of balance. So at any rate, so again, there's the flange, and the dripless stuffing box is down there with the little black hose going into it. That's where the prop shaft is, so it doesn't drip when the engine's not moving. Now, a regular stuffing box will still drip a little, but these don't. So I'm going to have to look into that. It may just need to be run more, and that might be why it was dripping. It's kind of spraying water out a little bit. And then my heater, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a, oh yeah, I just saw a drip. Yep. And now I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's a spigot sticking right out there, and it looked like it came off that spigot. That little faucet, looks like a plastic faucet. And so that's my leak. Yeah, because it was up from up high. I don't think it was leaking anywhere else. Yeah, it had to be from there. And if that's the case, then I found my leak, and that looks like that'll be really easy to fix. So yeah, this is all working out pretty good. And so I just need to run, as you can see, my batteries. I just got my starter battery right here so I could get to the flange, because normally it'll sit right in here. And so I moved it over here, kind of pulled out in the middle of the floor, so I didn't want to make sure these battery cables didn't get caught up in the prop shaft. As you can see, the cables don't indicate red or black. The previous owner didn't put it red on this end, and I it kind of took me a while to figure it out. He did put red, and this is the positive cable here on the side closest to my leg here. And at any rate, he didn't put a you know, like some shrink tube or something around it. That's would have been a good indicator that it was a positive cable, and you don't want to get your battery cables backwards, that's for sure. But he did put it on the other end, which hooks to the solenoid, starter solenoid, so I did finally figure it out. Yeah, and then there's the new battery cable that I got to put the lugs on, and I got in that yellow box is a hydraulic press for pressing on the lugs, so I can hook the cable to the terminals. You can see that cable's red cable's really big. It's a 4/0 cable, so it's a really big cable, and it's marine grade tinted copper. And I had bought one a couple weeks ago to do this battery hookup, and I measured wrong and it was too short, but that's okay because it'll work fine for my when I hook my lithium batteries to my my power inverter, which is that silver thing inside the cabinet over there. And yeah, that's it. So that's it for now, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that water strainer in right here. He's got this black plastic. It's a to anti-siphon thing. I don't know why it's here. It's not hooked to anything. So I'm going to probably put that strainer up here, which I think this is above the water line, so it'll be safe. And I just have to run it from that valve. You can see that green valve's a garden hose, but that seawater comes in down there. And there's another yellow handled valve underneath. You can't see it. He's got it kind of bent so you can get to it. But there's where the salt water comes in from the ocean, and it goes through that black tube. And then, so I'm going to unhook it there, and I'm going to run that black tube up here. And then I got another tube hose that same diameter that I'm going to run from the strainer back down to there. So so the strainer is going to be up here, which is going to be nice because every time you start the engine, you want to check your oil, and the oil dipstick's right down there, and the strainer will be right here. So that'll be all one process. I'll check the strainer and check the oil and open up the water valve so everything's close. And yeah, that's all you have to do to start her up, other than turn the key, hold it for a few seconds to heat up the glow plugs. This engine has glow plugs in it that heats the cylinders to combustion chambers, and that makes it start easier. And yeah, so everything's going good. Oh, I saw that water leak again. Yeah, I think it's either leaking from that spigot or from that copper tubing that's attached to the top of my water heater. And that gray square box is my water heater. And then that little black thing back there, that little dome thing with the chrome top sticking out, that little nozzle sticking out the top, that's the water pump. And you pump air into there. It's like a rubber diaphragm in there that deals with the pressure. That's the tank, and the pump itself is back here. So you can see the pump back there. And this hot water heater has not been plumbed into the engine yet. You can use the cooling system from the engine, which is boiling hot water. This engine gets hot, so it has to be cooled. And it's got coolant like your car radiator, and you can run it into your water heater and heat water with it. So when you run the engine, you're also heating water. So you can take a hot shower, or wash dishes in hot water or whatever. So at any rate, this area here, I'm gonna take this table out. There's not a lot of leg room. I mean, you could sit like 4, maybe 6 people in here. Table's not really big enough for 6 people to eat off of. It's hardly big enough for 2 people to eat off. I got it chained up to the ceiling right now, but I'm going to remove this table, and I'm going to build a great big huge chart table. And so there will only be seating on the side over here, but it's big enough for 2 people. And so yeah, it's going to be nice. I'll have one of the biggest chart tables on a sailboat anywhere in the world, so that's going to be really nice. And so that's it.